Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is Morgan. This is my channel Pisces Paperbacks, and today from the spooky backyard of my house, I'm going to be giving you some Halloween season book recommendations to read in October, which is starting this week. I'm so excited. I love Halloween season. I just think it is so fun. The scary movies, like the spooky movies. I love when people take scary things and have a lighter tone to them. So I love horror comedies, one of my favorite things in the whole world. So I have a list of books here that I just really want to talk to you about. You've probably heard some of them. They're not totally unique picks, but you know what? Some of the best horror I've read in the last year. I will say a lot of these are books that I read last year. I've read a bunch of horror this year, just none of it's really impressed me too much, unfortunately, but I do have a good list of some books that I think that you should read this October. I am going to start with the most scary and then kind of ease into the more lighthearted books in this list. So the first book I want to talk about is probably my favorite horror book I've ever read, and that is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is an incredibly suspenseful, edge of your seat, what is going to happen type horror novel about a group of 5 Blackfeet Indians who did something really bad 10 years ago and are now paying for it when a vengeful entity is coming to get them. I loved this book. The writing was so good. The writing was amazing, and as well as the perspective was incredibly interesting, and I think added to the narrative and suspense of this story in a way that was so incredibly unique. This was I think for me, this is the scariest book I've ever read, not to mention the fact that I listened to the audiobook, a lot of it while I was at work last year, so I couldn't react because I was at work with people, so something horrible and scary would be happening and I just have to be there this is fine. It was so good. I will say, specifically trigger warnings, there's gore, a lot of gore in this in some places specifically, and I think in the first section, as well as animal cruelty in some ways. I really recommend this book though. I think it's so good. The next book I want to talk about is a book that I've seen recommended a lot. What can I say? And that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Reid. This was made into a movie on Netflix last year. I didn't watch it. I've heard it was okay, but this is a really trippy horror novel about a couple who are driving home to have dinner with the guy's parents, and it's from the perspective of this unnamed female narrator, and just weird things are happening, and then it just takes a turn that you don't see coming. And this was a book that I read last year during my Reading Scary Books at Night video, which I thought was super fun to do, and I have to say I was scared. It spooked me and it made me think a lot. There's some imagery in that book that I found deeply disturbing, and I really recommend it for a quick, it's not even 200 pages, it's a very short book, a very quick scary read. The next book I want to talk about is my transition from scary to fun, because while it was very scary to me, I think it's also in a lot of ways very campy, and that is The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy. This was another book that I read during my Reading Scary Books at Night video, and I really loved it. It's a haunted house story, which I love. It has the energy of a B-list horror movie, which I also love. This book is about a woman named Adrian who inherits the Ashburn house when a distant family member of hers dies, and she is in such dire straits that she is desperate for a place to live and has no choice but to move into this run-down, creepy old house. And when horrible things start happening, she is forced to figure out is there something spooky going on? And yes, there really, really is. I loved this book. I thought that for a book, the jump scares were real fun, and while I don't think it was sophisticated or literary in its writing, I think that it was a super enjoyable page turner of a scary book. Next is something that I actually read really recently, and that was Eat Your Heart Out by DeVos. This is, as you all know if you've been watching my vlogs, a YA horror book about zombies and six teenagers who are sent to a weight loss camp, and then one day they wake up and everybody's turned into zombies and they need to figure out why and escape with their lives. I loved this book. I thought it was so fun, so entertaining. I just noticed my cat staring at me through our back door, so that's cool. This book was, I think, really, really good on the tone. I think it was lighthearted enough to be funny without taking away from the serious weirdness of these people-eating creatures that are gonna come after them. So I thought this was really, really good. So if your library has it, my library had the audiobook, which I also recommend. You should check it out. Next, a book that you all know I am obsessed with, and that is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. This light here is really not doing great things for me. This is an amazing YA contemporary fantasy mystery romance, and it was my favorite book I read last year. I still think about it all the time. It's just so good. It takes place over the week of Halloween. It ends on Halloween, which is like, can you ask for anything better? This book is about Yadriel, and he is trying to convince his family that he's a brujo, but they won't let him go through with his coming of age ceremony to get his magical powers. So he does his ceremony secretly, he gets his magical powers, and then that same night his cousin is murdered. So to prove to his family that, you know, he has a place among their ranks, he decides he's going to bring his cousin's ghost back and help figure out who killed him. And then he accidentally brings back Julian, the school bad boy who has been killed the same night, and then they have a couple days to figure out who killed Julian, and is there something bigger going on with the mystery of people going missing in the area, as well as maybe developing some feelings for each other. Do you ever just love a book so much? If you have not yet read Cemetery Boys, this is your final warning. Do it. And then last on this list is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is by the same author as much beloved The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, the Darker Shades of Magic series, Vicious, etc., etc. But this is Victoria Schwab's middle grade series, the Cassidy Blake series. This is the first book. It follows Cassidy Blake, an 11-year-old girl, 12-year-old girl who can see ghosts, and her parents, paranormal investigators, are given the opportunity to film a show where in each episode they travel to different haunted cities and talk about the myths and legends that kind of make up the ghost scene of each city. And so in this first book they go to Edinburgh, and Cassidy Blake encounters the most ghosts she's ever seen and is kind of sucked into a mystery of this one ghost who seems to be able to lure children away. And I have to say, I really, really loved this book. I thought it was so fun, so cheerful, so heartwarming, while also really like ghosty, and also dealing with like issues of life and death, because Cassie gained the ability to see ghosts after a near-death experience, and she has a ghost best friend who like died, and so they have to like deal with that as well. And it's just so fun. I will say there are a lot of references to Harry Potter in the first two books that I've read. I haven't read the third one yet. It was before like last year's absolute shit show, so do with that what you will. I do highly recommend this book. It is very fun. And lastly, a book that I'm not actually including because it's spooky or scary, but it seems like goth enough that I should include it anyway, especially since it is my favorite book that I've read so far this year. Gideon the Ninth, necromancers, lesbians, space. What more can you ask for? This book is very morbid, so I feel like it has the Halloween attitude if it doesn't have the Halloween like mask on, you know what I mean? So this book, if you haven't heard about it yet, is about Gideon, who is kind of indentured to the ninth house in this space empire where each of the houses like is home to a different kind of necromancy, and Gideon gets the chance to go with kind of like the princess of her house, Harrowhark, to this crumbling mansion to try and figure out how to become an immortal, all-powerful being. And it kind of turns into a whodunit murder mystery. And this book, I mean, I've said so much about this over the past 10 months. Oh my God, it's almost October. I just realized the year is really flying by. Anyway, I love this book. I just think you should give it a shot. It is very weird though, but I will also say the second book has a different writing style. So like, I don't know, there's like pros and cons here. This is the last book on my list, and I'm gonna wrap up this video now. In conclusion, Halloween is fun, reading is fun. I think we should combine the two and read scary books all year. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you're planning to read any of these books or if you've read them and what you thought of them. I can't wait to start my Halloween reading, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye!